8:30, we'll be starting the audit committee meeting. Are there any questions or anything that, Ann, or anything we want to touch on before we start, or anything you want to cover? We're all good? Okay, great. Okay, so we have everybody has a copy of the agenda. It's been posted in accordance with the rules. We have 4 members of the committee, and all 4 members of the committee are present. 2 sitting here in the front of the room and 2 present on Zoom, Ed Kangas and Chuck Jacobson. The first item on the agenda is the vote to approve the minutes of the April 5th meeting, which have been distributed in advance, posted accordingly, and so on. Anybody have any changes or suggestions on the minutes that were sent out before? No? If not, do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Moved.
Thank you. Chuck?
I second.
Thank you very much. So you're in favor?
In favor.
Good. So we're all in favor of that. The next area is a review of the 2023 audit plans and discussions. And we have Ian probably lead that, and then Dawn and Joe, and go from there. So, Ian, you want to maybe just take us through the plans that we have, and then who's gonna plans for the audit, and then of course we'll cover the financial statements in a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. First, I'd like to actually introduce, we have 2 interns with us. We have Toby and Mark at the back here. They've been with us for how many weeks now? It seems 4 or 5. Been phenomenal help. So they've been sitting in a lot of our meetings.
Thank you. Thanks for your hard work.
And I believe you're both econ majors? Yeah. So this is an interest to them.
Good. What is their jobs?
Anything and everything, and anything we've thrown at them, they've done everything. And
Have you learned what a debit and a credit is?
not to be confused with banking debits and credits. Debits are bad in banks.
The program, all the Buchanan High School.
Yeah.
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 We've had several in the town hall, but these 2 of them.
Perfect. Okay. So with that, both all the hard work and the announcement, we should have no problem this year at all being on time, all of our audits and reviews and everything. We have all this big team out there. Great. Okay, terrific.
So, and I apologize for both on Zoom there. I wasn't aware that 2 were going to be on Zoom.
Go ahead,
What
go ahead.
I did last night was I put together, Chuck, you had asked for a timeline. It's kind of hard to put a very definite timeline together. So I'll email out to you what I sent, but I did by month where I think we're going to be. And there's 2 main things or 3 main things we have to look at in an audit when you are trying to come up with the schedule. One is state statute for the Board of Ed. They have to report by the end of August. So their
What? Sorry.
the Board of Ed has to report their EFS report. It's their massive financial report the Board of Ed has to do by statute at the end of August. They have to file. And so we can't close our books any sooner than that because their July and August payroll goes back to the prior fiscal year. That's how their books work. So you have to wait till that payroll comes off for July, August, and then they book it all back. They report up to the state. Now we know their books are final. We start finalizing then.
So they close the books the end of August officially.
Effectively, yes, that's when they close their books. And Sean, jump in if I'm
September
speaking.
1st, we have to report what we pay theirs.
Right.
Yeah, they get penalized heavily if they don't. So within July and August, the town, we're closing our June books and then we're closing the year. So we have a lot of things we need to do, system related rollovers, things like that. Payroll splits, and just basically anything in regards to our POs, closing, all that type of stuff. There's a new GASB rule. I think it's 98, Catherine, correct me, or Joe, 96. 96 is SPITA is the subscription-based IT agreement that's going into effect this year. It's similar to leases. So it's IT subscriptions that are going past a year that we have to treat similar to how we treated the leases. PKF has looked at a couple on the Board of Ed. There is not as many as we had thought, but we're making sure we're going through all of them. It shouldn't be as big trying to get the leases.
It's just for, for the record, IT being information technology.
Yeah. Any of those bases. And they're ones that they're basically locked in. They're not the ones that we say, we may keep we may have a subscription, but we could cancel it at any time. It's the
Right.
ones that we are locked into a subscription for
Right.
a period of time.
Right. So these are IT contracts rather than IT leases.
Yes, yes.
So they're for services, I say. So
Subscriptions to different services. Yeah,
So essentially, if you bought software, it would be on your books.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this is kind of just a subscription to accomplish the same thing,
Right.
Yeah.
kind of like a fixed asset lease.
Yeah.
right. Yeah, similar
Yeah.
to. So
Okay.
we go through, July and August, that's for us. We close up a lot. We have to close up the POs, start doing accruals. September is the big heavy lifting month. The books close for the Board of Ed. We start closing all our books at that point. We have to do all our accruals, our, uncollectibles, things like that. IBNRs, I'm trying to think some of the others. And fixed assets, because we close our POs off in August. That means everything should be spent at that point or paid. We need that final point so we can start loading fixed assets to have the final numbers. We then start loading all our fixed assets in September into live. They will go into live this year. But what we have to be conscious of that whole time is the auditors need 5 to 6 weeks from the point they get their trial balance. From when we give them the trial balance, they need 5 to 6 weeks at that point.
Right.
So the goal right now is September to get that report, the trial balances to them. This year will be populating a lot of the information for them into they have certain spreadsheets and files. We'll be populating a lot of that. And I have to say from both, I know my experience last year and this year, we turn around our files pretty quick.
Okay.
Board of Ed and Diane is very instrumental in getting our files. And if departments needed,
Right.
we turn them around right away. So September is that critical month to make sure they get that trial balance.
Right.
Once they have that, now it's what do they need? Where are they going, what direction? And again, we get as much as we can turned around very quickly and start working on our schedules. So all the back schedules, taxes, all that debts, all those schedules we start working on. And then from there, it's really what do they need and what are they auditing? So that by hopefully November is when we can get a draft together. And I did, I put in there under the November section that possibly might need another one because there's one in November, one in December, that's it. But if we have the report to you by November, we don't want to wait to the December meeting to approve it. So
Right.
it'll be up to the audit committee at that point if you want to put another meeting together so we can finish at the end of November or that first meeting in December. I think it's like the first week in December.
So you're fundamentally saying that you would get the trial balance to PKF by the end of September,
Yeah, definitely September. We
Yeah.
need to get it.
and then there would be a draft of the financial statements in November.
Sometime in November, yeah. If they need a 5-6 week lead, yes.
So can we say the 10th of November, just to,
We have a meeting 7th of November. So you're saying
That might be a bit early. Yeah,
good for a draft,
yeah.
November 7th?
I mean, I would, Joe or Catherine, if you think we could get a draft that obviously could be 90% done at that point. But I just don't want to put them under too much pressure. I would like to get it out as soon as possible in September to give them the time they need.
So, actually waiting for we just have the April financial statements now, right?
Yep.
Current statements. So we're 5 weeks after month end, we just have the April financial statement. So an August 1st passover from the town to, is not much. It's only 8 weeks after year. No, it's August 1st or August 31st when you file that report.
First,
September 1st is when they need to do it.
We typically close. it close.
So it doesn't add that much time, but neither the Board of Ed or really the Board of Ed, but the town doesn't do a balance sheet other than once a year.
Oh, no, we do our balances. We're right now, we're doing it quarterly, but our balance sheets are pretty clean. We went through it last week, the week before, I think.
So
Our
you're,
balance sheets
so
are
you're
good.
truing it up quarterly,
Oh, yeah.
truing up all
Oh,
the
yeah.
accruals.
Yep.
Is-
We're trying to make sure what's in the balance sheet is clean and will be wiped out. There's 2 or 3 accounts that actually need a lot more time.
So the year-end close is the adjusting entries quarterly are the same as the adjusting entries at the end of the year.
No, we don't have a lot during the year. We don't have a lot of entries that like you would do at the end of the year. So during the year, it's all your payroll, making sure they clean out the right
Yeah,
way, things like
yeah.
that. At the end of the year, it's once we close off AP, invoices coming in and revenues coming in. They're all
That's
that.
what I was getting at. So why couldn't we do, maybe you just can't, but why can't we do a balance sheet close, a full close, almost like a year-end close at the end of the third quarter? I mean,
It all depends.
most, I mean, in a public environment, I realize it's not a public in the sense of SEC reporting. They do balance sheets certainly every quarter, if not every
Right.
month, and closures. So if we did that, wouldn't that both take the burden off you in the September timeframe to close and also expedite the process? Because, one thing that always concerns me is we put a lot of time and effort in the financial statements and we get them 6 or 8 months, 6 months after year end. So at that point, they're, kind of stale, right?
Right.
So how can we just generally expedite the process? Couldn't we just do a close on a balance sheet earlier?
Not particularly, because there's a couple of different things that could happen. So if a material invoice comes in while the audit's still open, we need to accrue it. So if a vendor sends it in, we're accruing that. The EFS gets opened up in November. That's the audit for the state. The state audits the BOE report, and they'll put any findings electronically, unless it's changed. Sean, please correct me if I'm wrong. They put the findings electronically out there that the Board of Ed then has to address. If for some reason there's a finding that needs to be addressed in November, they actually have to make changes. If that, and fortunately there hasn't been, but that's something that could. Or if through the audit an invoice wasn't accrued that came across in the audit process, that would open up the ESF again, and they'd have to put the numbers in. So you could say, yes, we'd like to close by September, October, but you have these, it could happen. That's all I want.
Yeah, I mean, and that always happens, and I mean, we don't have to debate it, but that always happens. I mean, with companies, an invoice comes in and then they just, even the auditors will come up with an adjustment, right? And
Right,
and then
right.
you book that. They might
Yeah.
come up with an adjustment in November, December, and then you just book it as a post-closing entry. And
Exactly.
so
So it just could, but we are definitely, turn those
Yeah.
reports over in September, which is
Yeah.
the earliest we could turn it over.
that was just a suggestion. It might be easy for you if you thought about having a hard close the end of the third quarter. Maybe you wouldn't want to do it every quarter. Just try one.
Yeah. And you were saying that you do a balance sheet each quarter?
We analyze the balance sheet every quarter for every fund.
So you don't,
Sure
so you
that,
don't prepare, so you don't kind of prepare a balance sheet each quarter?
well, no,
Okay.
I can print off a balance sheet whenever I want.
18 months.
Yeah, the system prints it off at any time I want. We actually go through schedules to make sure things are cleaning out. A lot of things fall out with, with third-party payroll, so we have timing issues there. There's a lot of things for voids and things like that. Nothing wrong. It's just making sure that we follow up on if it's outstanding this month, when is it getting cleared?
Yeah.
So we do that type of analysis to make sure. We also have payments that need to go up to the state. There's accounting entries that need to be done on that. We do them quarterly. It's not time effective to do it monthly. So, but I can print a balance sheet any day.
Yeah, well, just a suggestion from a timing standpoint. I mean, we don't, it's fine if you want to continue to do it the way you do it. It's just that doing it on a quarterly basis, I mean, it's just like your own stuff at home, right? I mean, if you have to go back and find something that happened a year ago, you got to find out where it's filed with boxes in, at least in my house. So that's fine.
Yeah. No, I would love,
Yeah.
definitely what I wanted. And we do give deadlines to the departments, because a lot of it has to do with how long we have to keep the POs open and then shut them down to make sure that invoice. So there are deadlines along the way that we do stick to, but
So
definitely
under this, you think we could be done by the end of November, potentially?
a draft for sure. Yeah. And then it's just the fine tuning that you want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bill, can I make a comment?
Sure.
It strikes me.
Yeah.
It strikes me. As people that work primarily in the private sector, you focus on what public companies do. The public companies have investors that are making decisions constantly, and immediacy of information getting out there is important. In the municipal world, the only people that really care are our creditors, our bondholders. And this cycle that everyone in the municipal world is on is really kind of a much slower process, because one, we're not as automated. as public companies are in terms of all the numbers coming together. But more importantly, it's just a cycle. Joe could perhaps, the fact that municipalities are on June 30th fiscal years rather than December is because to be off cycle from the public companies. So there's more time for auditing firms to work on off cycle business. Kind of my perception, so I think I now understand why you're sort of focused on trying to get more immediate, but just not the municipal world. I mean, they respond to their creditors, and we don't get that many surprises in the municipal world. We don't get use the word material. I can't think of what could be material that pops up as an invoice. It just doesn't kind of register. So, my perspective.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's fine. I guess I was just really focused on the longer you let things be out there, the more difficult it is to follow up. And, the whole idea of getting the annual report out is a burden. I realize it. The sooner you get done, the sooner you get off, and so who wants to be talking about last year's and at Christmas time? That's my perspective.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. If someone asked me, I'd change the whole system.
Well, but
No
I'd
one
be
asked
curious-
me and they're not going to ask me that. So I'm just trying to help man get done earlier.
I mean, I would love it done early as well. And,
Yeah.
I have to give credit to the staff. They do turn it around
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah,
quick.
it's fine.
And
It's fine.
PKF is very quick at turning it around for
Sure.
us too.
But Bill, if we
Questions?
reel it in from February,
No,
Yeah.
we're reeling it in from
Start.
February. Don't worry about that.
Okay.
That's
late November, early December.
Yeah.
I mean, that's progress. And if we do that.
no,
then
no,
next year we
it's
can
not
go-
progress. You
Can we bring
you
it in a
haven't been
month
here.
earlier?
You haven't been here when we used to get it done in February. Then we got to November. And so last year we slipped. So it's not progress. It's getting back to
Well, that's,
steadying the boat. But okay, that's fine. We just asked you for timeline. So you're just fundamentally saying draft first 2 weeks of November. Good draft. Yeah.
I can't commit to the first 2 weeks. Give me the-
Yeah, maybe what we could do is you could put together a timeline, a few key things, right? There's the MD&A part. There's then the whole financials, kind of a target date to have those done. And then, from there we can, because when you get to the end of November, you've got the holiday, right? You've got, you always run into the Thanksgiving time. And then we start into December. And then by the time you get to December, which is usually the time at which you might see something, it's kind of difficult to make changes at that point in time and be done by the end of December.
Also, I mean, it very much depends on whether we do the MD&A ahead of time, right?
Right.
Yeah,
now-
and how can that be done ahead of time?
Do the MD&A now.
I mean, certainly the audit committee could start looking at if there's things you want to change in it. And,
exactly.
there are things you can add and we can add in any of the changes from, whether an economic standpoint or whatever.
Yeah, we
But
could build
the
that.
numbers are going to be the numbers and they just get populated
Drop
once
them
they're
in,
done.
yeah.
We drop them in.
Yeah.
It's what do you want to see changed in it? And,
yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Good. Okay.
We can maybe, we can provide some thoughts on that, over the next few months, right, Rob?
Next few weeks.
yeah,
Or whatever, but it's certainly within the next
Mm.
period of time. So you've got time to hopefully think about it and put it into the plans.
Okay.
Anyway, thank
So
you.
when we're
Thank you for
starting-
this. I mean, a lot of thought has gone into it and,
thank you. And
It's
I can
very
shoot that
useful.
up as I go along and maybe send it to you monthly where we are, what we've done,
Yeah.
if that helps.
so,
Yeah,
Yeah, I think what's important is that you and Joe agree on those specific dates,
Okay.
whatever they are.
Yep, we'll work through, once we get through, another month or two, we need some time under us to get where we are with everything. What the list of the ask is going to be, things like that, but we can certainly work that out.
And is there any reporting of the balance sheet? I know we were talking about that, but any reporting to anybody throughout the year, or is it just internal?
Are you talking statewide or just boards,
I'm
internal?
talking about Board of Finance or Selectmen or
No, we-
Kevin or anybody.
But not the balance sheet.
Well, there's a repository that is the SEC for municipal bond issuers.
Well, when we go for bonding, we
gets
give them
recorded,
everything.
But
Yeah.
it's recorded in that once you finalize it,
Yeah.
it gets recorded in.
No, but I'm talking about like a quarterly balance sheet, just to kind of see where the
No
Um,
update, no update on the bonding statements, no.
We're going out for bonding, probably February, March of next year. So the end of the year is when we'll start kicking into that. But like I said, it's a report we can run at any time because we look at that, we look at the balance sheet, obviously cash, we look at all every day. But
Okay,
I would just think that it would be useful for, like, as part of the reporting package, whether it's monthly or quarterly or every 6 months or something, just to have a balance sheet that, people can look at.
I'll ask the Board of Finance because it's really their report that we prepare for them. And just to address one of your questions on it, we'll ask if the Board of Finance wants to see that type of report, but we have spoken to the Board of Finance before that we were looking, myself and Josh, the budget manager, are looking to change the report itself, start putting in forecasts. We'd like to really build in forecasts in there too, because that's more
Mhm.
meaningful to see where we are. And a cover letter, because that's what I've done in all other municipalities.
Mhm.
We're working on redesigning that, but obviously trying to get all this stuff is the higher priority as we have a report in place, but we will be changing up the report. And then once the Board of Finance approves of that format, then we'll be rolling that out.
okay. So why don't we move on
Yep.
and go?
I'd like to make one more comment. You touched upon the MD&A. The reality is we won awards for a couple of years because Linda was all into presentation and we got up to a high level compared to, other towns. So philosophically, we want to stay there or do we want to roll it back? And that's the issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that's.
Hope we want to stay.
Oh, but
I wasn't sure how to respond to that, but given all the work we do.
We don't want to change the format.
It's
too
like a-
much,
yeah,
It's like a,
but perfection is still out there.
It's created an increased burden. Again, it's not the expectation in the municipal world to that degree. I think it's great, but we did get to a high level.
Yeah, yeah.
I just, I
it
just
could go
can't,
still
I'm
higher.
just sorry, as a citizen of the country and a taxpayer, I just cannot accept anything other. I realize we're not perfect yet, but I have an aspiration.
There's always room.
We
for
will-
This is my little small
done
little
it.
part, and I've often said, if I was a lot younger, I probably would run for some office, but I'm not. So this is the only little way I can contribute.
You'll get it as perfect
Yeah.
as possible. We will.
Works for the auditors.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's, I wanted to make sure that they're okay with this
Joe,
timeline.
what do you think? And Catherine, what do you think?
I think that makes sense if we get the trial balances in September, depending on the timing in September, at some point in November, a draft makes sense. I think the one thing we need to also make sure we get
It's
is
a
the
little bit hard
pension
to
and
hear.
OPEB.
I'm not sure. It's a little bit hard. Maybe it's your mic, or maybe you got to get closer to your mic. You having trouble hearing?
It's a bit sort of.
Should be on my headphone. I think as long as we get trial balances in September, and depending on the timing in September depends on the exact time we can get a draft, but yes, at some point in November, I'd say early to mid-November would be good for a draft. We just have to make sure we get the pension and OPEB reports on time because those are a big piece. And I think the OPEB we got at the end of December last year. So just making sure we have those, I'd say by November 1st at the absolute latest.
So, you said you need to make sure you get the report on time. Just define on time.
There's the pension and OPEB reports. I'd say we need those by November 1st at the latest.
November 1st.
Yep.
So if you get it on time by November 1st, you'll be able to do what? Deliver an audited opinion by when?
The draft, I would say mid-November.
November 1st, and then you'll deliver it. I'm missing the date there.
By the end of November, did you say, Catherine?
I'd say mid-November, we could have a draft, assuming we've got trial balances in September.
Because we also have to, the OPEB and pension comes from our actuaries. So it's a chain. We have to put all that information for them together.
Okay.
There's-
So why don't
and
you
then-
guys get together and, it's good. We're driving down to a date. Why don't we just, come up with a date so we can put in and, whatever works for the schedule. Our objective is to file to have a final report, final CAF report for, in December. So it can be filed in December. And the second objective would be not to do it during Christmas week
Thank you.
or whatever the holiday week is, and so if we can avoid doing that and it changes, And, beyond that, at least for this little town in New Canaan, we can't expect to change much more this year on that. In terms of, accelerating it months and months a week, that's a fine schedule. That's the schedule we'd want to be on.
Well, the town council meets in the middle of the month, so the December meeting should be the target to get it approved by the town council.
Right,
So you,
exactly.
you
That's
can
what I'm
certainly
saying.
make that
At
target.
the December meeting.
Yes,
That'd be
and then it
perfect, yeah.
goes the next day, day after, yeah.
And then I think all we've said is generally we need to get a good draft a week before that. This week, so we can read it, come up with comment. We'll do drafts during the year, but sort of a final draft that goes for them a week ahead of time. So we have a change or something like that, we can share it with you, but it's unlikely we'll have one at that point.
Yep. And we can always do what we did before, send it out to the group, but you can't reply back to all. You can just reply back to one person and we can figure it out.
Yeah. Good.
So it keeps going along.
Yeah. You can't reply back to all because it's a meeting.
It's FOI.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you
That's
just
fine.
have to make sure.
Yeah. I think we've been, I think we continue to need to be, so I think rather than, get all hung up in the FOI procedures, maybe we'll have a few more meetings just where we can discuss this stuff and,
Right.
it's
Okay.
fine.
Sure. Yeah, that.
Okay.
So that's
Uh,
the planning on it.
I think that's great. We have a plan.
We are, just so you, when you talk about meeting, we are, I think, was it July 19th? Was the date we settled on for the prelim? So we do have a prelim, Board of Ed, Town, Auditors, PKF, that we're all going to meet together on
Oh, good.
the
Okay.
kickoff. And then again, sometime the major bulk will be in October.
Good.
Mhm.
So the new accounting standards that Chuck, did you have particular questions on them, Chuck?
No, I didn't. I just wanted to, you mentioned 99, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And whether there's any others or anything else. I think from what I understand, this statement 99 is the key thing for this year. Is
96.
that right? Is that right? I just kind of wanted to
It's
see
just
whether
that-
there was anything else coming along or whatever. These other couple, I know aren't due for this year.
Right, 24 for 100 and 25 for 101.
Maybe is that whatever. And so those are for a later time. You're not going to do anything earlier or anything like that.
I mean, looking at them, they don't look like.
They're not
big
major.
Changes.
No, they're
The
not.
content of these standards are probably not going.
No.
Okay,
Not
that's
even
and
at the
nothing else. So 99 is the key thing for this year. Is that right?
96,
96. Okay.
96 and.
the SPIDA, the IT agreements.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the main
But I
one.
mean, these are not
Okay.
major impact.
All right.
But GASB 101, which is compensated absences, is that going to be
We do that anyway,
Do
but
anyway.
they're changing the method. And even if you're not eligible for the payout, because if you don't stay or the timeline, you still have to, some of them are, I don't know why they're making us do it, because our liability will increase because it isn't a true liability for us, but we have to put it on, but that's not till 25. So,
Okay,
yeah.
good.
But we still do it every year and it's topside anyway. It's not on the
Good.
regular books.
Good.
Uh,
So, Joe or Catherine, do you see any issues either on the new standards or do you see any issues coming up at the Board of Ed or the town in connection with this year's audit? And Joe, I might ask you to respond if you can, just because unless Catherine's fixed her, because it is a little hard to hear, Catherine. I don't want to miss what PKF has.
I can try holding it closer. Is this
I hear
better?
you, Catherine. I don't mean you personally. I mean the microphone.
Yeah, I have horrible microphone issues. Is this better?
Yeah.
That's better.
I-
That's better, yeah,
I'm
but-
fine. I'm fine from my perspective, but maybe in the building there, it's harder.
I'll try to, 96, I think will be okay. Like Ann said, it seems like it's starting to look at some of the contracts. There's a lot to look at, but there's not a lot that will be recorded. And I know both the town and the Board of Ed have started looking at it. So I think it seems like everything's in good shape for that one. And like Ann said, 101 on compensated absences is fiscal 25. So it might be something to look at next year. When they have some downtime, but not to worry about this year. I think the SPIDA is much more important to look at now.
And there's no requirement in the GASB rules to talk about standards that have been issued but not yet implemented. Like there is
for other
Right.
companies. Okay.
Okay, I think the answer is no requirement to do that, right? Yeah,
Yep.
good.
Yeah.
Okay,
So- All right, so
so
we're all set.
Catherine, when do you start your preliminary work for the audit?
We've started our planning now. We've sent out a couple of requests to the town, so we'll start making our expenditure selections pretty soon to send those out. And then, like Ann said, we're meeting with the town and the board on the 19th, so we'll be out there. So that'll be the bulk of our preliminary work.
Good. And then what's the status of the engagement letter? Is it signed? I just
It went through all the boards and it's approved. I just have to get,
approved,
yeah.
signed,
over to
that's good.
Catherine.
Signed it, yeah.
Good.
Catherine, can I just ask a question for your selections, and you need to look at documentation, invoices, purchase orders, whatever. Does the town scan and send them to you, or do you come here and physically look at documents? Just out of interest.
For the most part, they've been scanned, and I think since COVID happened, a lot of our clients have been uploading them. And I think New Canaan has most of them in PDF form anyway in Munis. So it's worked out pretty well for all of us, I think.
Yeah, I mean, either way is fine. Just curious, because you have the portal and, yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
we just take it from our system to theirs.
Catherine, how much of your total hours that you spend on this engagement, how much do you spend physically in the town of New Canaan? Percentage, ballpark, either at the Board of Ed or the town, and how much do you spend,
On some.
on-site versus remote?
I'd say the majority of it is remote because the town and the Board of Ed are both very good at uploading. And I think it's been easier for most of us. So I'd say probably 85, 90% has been remote. We definitely come out for planning because it's great to have those conversations in person. And we might come out once or twice more during field work. But for the most part, it's remote.
Yeah. We should talk about, that and, sometimes being around helps you understand things better
Definitely.
at the coffee cooler, at the water cooler, wherever, particularly for an auditor. So we got to think about you, Joe, and Ann and us and the Board of Ed, Also, I don't know exactly how it used to work in the past, but sometimes being remote puts more burden on the town or on the Board of Ed for providing you information. I realize they have to provide it to you, and if you're in a conference room, maybe it's fundamentally the same thing, but we would agree on what's a good tempo. And I'm not, and I realize lots of the world is remote, and I realize the whole debate about going back to the office and so on, but we're interested in just the audit process. Right?
Yeah.
Yep, we can definitely talk about that. And Ann and I discussed it, and I can certainly see with Tracy and Sean what works for them.
Yeah. Now, what does the town and the Board of Ed have as a policy? I mean, we 100% in person. We do. Companies. I don't like to talk about the public, but that's sort of, there is a part of the world that's the public besides.
Well, the Board of Ed, the teachers have
Yeah,
to
yeah.
show up, so I think.
Yeah.
No,
But
seriously,
I see the first selectman here, and I see
We're mostly-
superintendent here.
we're mostly in person. We're a little flexible with 1 day a week. But I think everybody's on a 4-day. We also went to half day Friday, rather than some other towns are trying to make a 4-day work week. We don't want to go there.
Yes,
It's unpopular with residents. So
there we go. Yeah, yeah.
Since our teachers are in, we're all in.
Right. Yeah.
You're all doing it.
Yeah. So we really ought to think about, more in person. We don't want to become inefficient just here for the sake of being here. And, but at the same time, I realize, lots of companies are thinking about it, and those companies that, you take Google, for example, which, they know what their objective is, and their objective is to be back in the office. And just to draw an extreme of a very young public company, right? So, so it'll be good if you could do that.
Well, I don't know about your experience, but in the private sector, I with respect to audits, I mean, I'm finance now, sort of post the emergency. Audits are still being done the way Catherine of
Yeah.
public companies, mostly remote.
Right.
There's, maybe not as remote as during the height of the pandemic, but
Yeah.
70-80%, whatever, remotely.
No, I agree. I agree with that.
Companies like it because the auditors are,
They're not around.
not there.
They're not traveling.
That's why they like it.
Yeah.
That's my point. You know.
They will travel more work
Exactly.
time.
I can think of all of the challenges. When there's been a challenge, I could think of the challenge always because it was a conversation with someone rather than. I could share them with you in the back right now.
That's actually an argument for having the internal audit function to a certain extent, because having internal auditors
Yeah.
present.
Yeah.
Is a good thing.
Yeah, no, I agree with you because I mean, that's a great point. I hadn't even thought about that before, but one of the things on the agenda is internal audit. If we're going to hire an internal auditor and they're going to be someplace remote, I'm just not sure I would understand the benefit of that. So, yeah, but that's something we ought to think about.
Yeah, that's different.
So, good. Okay, the next item on the agenda, we talked about the engagement letters and we talked about the review of the audit plan discussion. Sean, anything that from your standpoint that Board of Ed in this process, are we putting any undue burden? Can you speed up the process at all? You could get it done in August, the baby takes September off or something like that.
Did you just give us? Go grab that one because you can't grab that one. Yeah.
I would tell you our hard deadline is September 1st. We have to make it.
That's a government filing date, right?
That's
State
it.
filing date.
State file, EFS, right? And it's, I've been in districts where we're finished by the end of July. Well, I mean, New Canaan, it's, we work well into the month of August.
Right. Well, why is that? We're just, is it a
Just
system? Is it
different
just,
processes by town,
Yeah.
really what it is.
what goes into that report? I mean, fundamentally, is it all income statement based? Is it any balance sheet information? Is it
Yeah.
more textual? More,
It's all the accounts.
Yeah,
It's
right.
all the accounts.
Plus income.
is there an
from
explanation? Like, is there an MD&A in there?
No.
No, okay.
That's something we could probably, I did the MD&A, it was probably in December, January. That certainly could be moved up.
Yeah.
No
I mean,
question about it.
Yeah, I mean, as it relates to the year that we're going to be reporting on, which will be ending on July 31st. I mean,
June.
you may not know the exact number, but I'm sure that the Board of Ed understands all of the fluctuations that you've had. You got it buttoned down on that because you did that in your budget process. You could probably write the MD&A right now. Right? I mean, I think you probably could, but I think it's a good suggestion. That's what we're let's get that out of the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
actually.
Yeah.
Anything else that you could identify to help us?
No, I come from the private sector too. I'm used to, quarterly reporting, by, IBM was one of the early ones, usually by the 20th of the month. And, so, I arranged my marriage based on the closing schedule. Just the way it is.
That's what I'm trying to do, get my Christmas vacation set up so I get a quality schedule.
But,
Good.
yeah, I think something we could possibly do is move it up a little bit, but not much more than that.
How about the working with PKF, the audit process, and how you're feeling just about controls in general at the Board of Ed?
I think the controls are good. I
Yeah.
really do.
Joanne was there. She was, I'd called her on something. She was buttoned down on everything and have you picked up that mantle and still doing the same thing?
Absolutely.
And we've,
Controls are good.
and we do we have most areas, we don't have cash anymore in really
No.
any area, right?
No.
There was a time we had that, but we don't.
Cash is no good.
And even at the sporting events, I think some of that's gone away from cash as well, right?
Yeah, we're working towards,
Yeah.
like a debit card or.
Yeah, or a telephone.
Or a
Case maybe.
service.
It's all terrific. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's good. I know at one time we talked about, it's been quite a number of years about the 501c3s, which are the independents, and you still have quite a number of those. And we talked about the sort of separation of church and state on that, making sure there wasn't too much representation from the town or the Board of Ed on some of those, and the filing requirements. And, if you haven't looked at that recently, that might be another area that you could look at. I mean, the old days there were a few things that we modified, Ryan, right? And like, just make sure they're there, and something else hasn't creeped into it.
Yep, we made a few changes.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's always good to take another look at it.
Yeah, let's just make sure it's something. Good. Great. Okay, that's good on that. You're welcome, stay there. I mean, so now the next thing is we're going to talk about, unless anybody has a question or issue, is move over to item 3, which is discussion of the potential of the auditors and the internal audit process. And I think that, I think it's good for us, while, I'm not necessarily inclined to change accounting firms, and I see the benefit of not changing the accounting firms. I think the government process is such that RFPs are appropriate. We didn't go out for an RFP this year for the audit we're in right now, because we really felt like Ann was new. We had a lot of changes in the department. You were fairly new in the process, and changing at that point wouldn't be a good thing to do. But I think, and I'm not saying we should change, but I am saying we should probably go out for an RFP this year for the audit. This year being for
For the
For the
24.
next-
the 24 audit, yeah, but do it now, so we're not doing it in January, February, March. Firms can propose what firms can propose now. If we would select a different firm, we'd get the right talent from the firm if we did it early in the process. With the last ones, we won't know. We'll sort of get the last person that's available on their team, and so that would be my thought. What do you think about that?
Just with the industry right now, I would say with the survey that was done for Fairfield County, some towns that did go out, some didn't get replies at all.
Yeah.
And some got their own firm
Yeah.
back, and that was the only one that replied back. So the industry's, staffing struggles. So I'm concerned that going out now, we're not going to have people that are going to be able to reply to us, because they're going under their audit season right now, which is really busy. I don't know if a couple of months down the road or that might change the staffing on the firms, but Fairfield County was struggling to get their RFPs.
I think they're always busy. I mean, for us, it shouldn't be a big request. We just send
No, it's not a big
Yeah.
request. I'm just wondering
Yeah.
that we may not get the
2-page
replies we
letter.
think.
well, if we don't, then we're sort of stuck with Joe and Catherine, and but and which wouldn't be bad. I don't mind
Mhm.
being stuck with Joe and Catherine. I'm not, generally speaking, I don't like changing auditors, but I think it's sort of
The process.
the
Okay.
process we have to do, right?
Bill, I support that. I mean, this is a private company you and I own. We do what we want, but this is the public sector.
yeah.
I just think we haven't done it all through the pandemic. It's the right thing to do it now. Delaying it till August, September, October, when the firms who work in this municipal area are, flat out busy doing the audits. I don't think it's going to get any easier. But if we go out, and that is, as Anne says, the only response is from our incumbent auditor. We know where we stand. We've done the right thing for the town taxpayers, I think.
Joe, when would be the typical time to go out for, I mean, towns do this all the time, right? When would be the typical time to go out for the request?
Typical time is just normally January, like after the audit.
January, after the audit.
Yeah, but that's okay. We don't have to wait till January. It's just pretty
I was just wondering.
pretty standard process. And Joe and I talked, I think eventually longer term, we'd have to, if we're going to keep PKF, we'd have to change partners from Joe from an independent standpoint. We love Catherine, and but I'm always concerned that some of the towns are going to get her, and then the firm's going to tell us we can't have her. So we just get through the process and get it all buttoned down now. The same thing on independent internal auditors.
Well, sorry, I just before the show, I mean, based on what Joe said, to me, that's all the more reason to do it early in the fiscal year, like July or August, and not wait till everyone else is going out. So I would really favor doing it, not very long after the end of this fiscal year.
And I think the same thing with the, we could send it out, we could send them out together, two separate documents, so we could send them out, one now, one later, and next month, but also on the, we've been talking about the independent audits process. We had that built into the system. We didn't do that because the firm we were using, actually the two principals, I believe both of them either got very sick or maybe both of them passed away. It's been a couple of years, and then with the COVID, we didn't search for another firm. But I think we'd like to put that internal audit process back, just so everybody knows. We have engaged PKF to do a little bit of internal audit work. And I talked about this. I think I'm interested in the procurement process to make sure that we got the right checks and balances. So we're having PKF take a look at, two separate vendors or one vendor, just as a way of testing the procurement process. And so that's an example of things that the internal auditors would do. And as we did in the past, we would set the scope of the internal audit the same way we did it last time. We would do that jointly with the Board of Education. We do that, jointly with the town. Sean, Brian would say, hey, these are a couple of spots we want you to look at. We would be heavy on input, low on lots of paperwork and reporting,
Like a proactive, I guess.
yeah. And then they would come back to you and, hey, we checked this thing out, this particular area out, and there's some modifications you can make and so on. And then the audit committee would only be in the process just to set the scope in the beginning. And then the independent auditors they would have a clear understanding that if there were details that needed to be worked out with the town or what the board had in terms of fixing things, they work with you on that. But if there was something that was important that wasn't getting done, then they would come to the audit committee. We don't need to be involved in the whole process. Of course, the first selectman was involved in that process too. And I think, Ann, you and I talked about this. I think you see this as a positive thing because there's a lot of changes you want to make. And presumably some of the top priorities for the internal audit process would be items that you had on your list as well. I don't have any burning platforms right now, other than the procurement process. Just a good thing to look at. So is that okay? So we can get that out. And someone like we talked about Greg Riley. I mean, he works with, he'd be a great guy to write the RFPs.
Oh, no, I'll run it by him. I did get some templates from area places. So, and it's something he could run through for language.
And I think, from our standpoint, I haven't done it in a while, but the RFP would be sort of a page or two, just saying the town of Canaan is here. We want to take a look at rotating auditors. We also want to take a look at independent and asking the firms to respond, right? I mean, I don't think we have to, and then when they come in, we could talk to them about budget, maybe on internal audit. We got to give them a little direction of budget and so on. This is directionally what we're looking to, or maybe not. Maybe we could be open-ended and ask them what they suggest and then manage the budget after they come back. You could help us on the internal audit. Well, I know you can't do it, but well, I guess, Joe, you could if you got both of them, you could respond to the internal audit and not do the audit. But that we wouldn't give you the internal audit unless we found a replacement for you.
Right. So we certainly could propose on both, and then we'll take one or the other, whatever you decide.
Good. Well, that's actually, yeah, good. Okay, so if there's everybody sort of supports that, that's great.
Good.
I don't think we have to vote on that. Where's Tucker? We don't have to take a vote on that, do we? No, I don't think so.
No.
Good, thank you. Good.
No, because it's a normal.
Could we, Sean, since you're up here, you want to maybe go through the Board of Ed's most recent financials, highlight anything that,
Sure. Just
why don't you, for the group, why don't you want us to go to
and I was just going to go over the executive summary that, I mean, basically through April, we're at $73.8 million.
This is the first
expended.
page of your,
this is the deck, and it's called March 23rd Statement of Accounts.
you're doing March or April?
April.
That
Actually,
was
May will
stated
be
separately, yeah.
done,
That's
ready
it.
shortly.
Yeah. Okay, I'm with you.
So $73.8 million, which we've spent 74.5% of the budget of 99.1. An additional 21.4 is encumbered, which is comparable to what we had encumbered a year ago. Our remaining available balance is 3.9, which also is comparable to a year ago period. When I look at the attainment analysis, we have this anomaly relating to benefits. We had 3 transfers to the ISF at year end. The way I calculate.
Just, what's the ISF, just so everybody.
Internal Services Fund.
Right.
So about $1.6 million transfer in. There were 3 transfers. They were booked in June of last year. When we calculate the prior year attainment, we take the year-to-date actual over the year-end actual. Where for the current year, we take the year-to-date actual over budget to calculate it. And right now, just as reported, it would show us that we're high on the attainment for this year by 1.27%. But when we look at the detail benefits, we've got the 3 transfers in. If you normalize for that, literally we're spot on both in the benefits account as well as overall. Spot on.
Right.
So indicate we're on track from a attainment basis.
So I just briefly review that, I realize it's not brief, but just briefly review for the group that calculation. In order to determine. your
Attainment
spot. Yeah,
calculation?
yeah.
So I look at year-to-date actual as a percentage of our full year budget. Right, and that's 74.5%. Then I look at last year's same period, year-to-date actual over the full year, so year-end actual. So where were we in April relative to where we landed for the year? Compare that to this year, where we are versus budget. And obviously, if our attainment this year is higher, it would indicate that we're spending at a faster rate. And look at, where we're spending at a fast rate. In the case of the Board of Ed, it was predominantly in the benefits area and driven by the fact that we had last year, the 3 transfers in at $1.6 million. So if you normalize for that, all of our attainment year to year is basically right on target.
And the 3 transfers in will because you were short last year?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So you're anticipating with last year being 22, July 22?
Yep.
Yeah. So what you're anticipating is that since you were short last year, that you're going to need that same amount, so to speak, this year. All right.
Well, I'm just looking at the overall balances, where we are relative to where we did need the 1.6 in the ISF last year.
Right.
I don't think we need anything like that this year.
So, why did you need the 1.6 last year? The underlying detail?
Higher claims.
Higher claims.
Higher claims, and also to fund the IBNR.
Right.
So.
And then how is the insurance, just insurance in general, what does the town insure where we pay premiums? Is there any insurance we have where we go to the market, we pay premiums, general liability insurance, certainly health insurance, right? Some of it's state, some of it's covered by the state. I'm trying to understand the cost. I'm trying to understand. Let me say it differently. The cost of insurance in the general market is going up dramatically everywhere. And I'm trying to understand what impact, if any, that has on the town. If you're doing workman's compensation, you're doing general liability insurance, you're doing catastrophe insurance, whatever it is, there's an enormous increase in premiums. Yeah.
For fiscal year 24, we experienced a decrease. Cheryl can probably address it for outside of medical claims and workers, including workers' comp.
Going up, it
went down.
Just explain, okay.
Workers' comp this year, we're very lucky. Well, actually going into next year, we've gone down -7.5, and on our liability -2.5.
Do you know why that has gone down?
We have had good claims. We have also spoken with them about possibly going out for bid next year. So I think between the two, but we have done very well, both the Board of Ed and the town in regards to workers' comp and liability. We have safety teams we've put
Yep.
together. We follow up on each of our claims. And so I think Kerma has seen the good work the town has done and the Board of
And
Ed.
that number that you quoted is for the Board of Ed, including the town together?
Correct, on both sides.
Yeah, and keep in mind, we have a mutual company in Connecticut called Kerma, which 160 of the 169 towns participate
Right.
in. So they're very experience oriented, and
Right.
if you have good risk controls and
Right.
you have good experience, you see it in the premiums. Plus, we get an annual dividend back. So
I was gonna ask you, do you get an annual dividend?
We do. It ranges anywhere from 25,000 to 125. So
Right.
we've done very well.
How do you split that with the Board of Ed?
I was just gonna ask that question. What?
Right, what's, you getting tired or what? I didn't know what the number was, but I knew it was a good question.
We work out the allocations with the board.
the other thing on the health side, we are self-insured. I think the Board of Ed for like 12 years in the town for about 6 or 7 years now.
Correct.
And in the long term, being self-insured saves you a lot of money compared to being private insurance where you're paying premiums. We do have stop loss insurance to cover the black swans that can happen.
Right.
And so I think if you want to address health
Well,
insurance
and even
more,
on the healthcare, we were looking at close to an 11% increase and we came in at 2%. So we have done very well with Anthem and with our broker. And I believe the Board of Ed has. done
Board of
very well
Ed's
also.
healthcare is different, all right?
Correct. They're with Cigna and we're with
Cigna.
Anthem.
they have Cigna as their provider to manage the plan,
Administrator, yeah.
administrator, and we have Blue Cross Blue Shield.
And we share the same
What's the,
stop loss.
just refresh my memory to, how many people is in your plan versus the,
We have 183 full-time,
Right.
which is equivalent to a little over 300. They call it belly buttons that we insure. And I'm 900.
you have 900?
Yeah. More like 1,500 belly buttons.
Oh, including,
Family. And
well,
about
including
600
the family, yeah.
Yeah. We're
Yeah,
about,
including the family members, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
630-ish
Yeah.
employees
Yeah.
or so.
Yeah.
But,
And is your plan going, the premiums going up for your health?
As a self-insured plan, we work with Cigna and with Joe too. It's not necessarily the premium, right? We figure out kind of project that out what
Right.
the cost is. It's.
So Aetna's administering it? Is that,
So what happens is, right, then all those costs are built into that
right,
developed premium,
Right.
right?
right.
Instead of say, like in a fully insured plan, you get the $32,000 is the cost, and then you just build around that.
Right.
This gets rolled up into whatever it is. Pretty consistent though. We've done all right. One of the risks in the whole thing is our individual stop loss, as you're talking about, right? So it is that insurance market, and
Right.
we're closely monitoring that and waiting to get some of those numbers.
Just refresh my memory, is there, when a person retires from either the town or the Board of Ed, and it may be different for different people, but is there medical insurance available post-retirement, and is it paid for by the town Board of Ed, or is it paid for by the individual or combination?
On the Board of Ed side, it's paid for by the individual. And there is a state subsidy that comes back that defers some of that cost
Right.
For the teacher.
for the teachers. And that's a state statute. So the teachers certified staff are permitted to remain in the plan, same plan that's offered to active teachers, but they pay the full boat.
They pay a piece of it. Yeah.
They pay all, like, we don't pick up the other side of it.
Right.
And then the state provides us some subsidy.
So the teachers pay throughout their career toward their retiree health
Yeah.
insurance, right? And so they get state's plan.
Yeah.
They don't get,
Kind of like the pension, right?
Right.
Right, they can stay in our plan up to 65, and then they have to go into Medicare. And there's also the teacher retirement board
Yeah.
insurance, which is excellent. We encourage people to go into that if need be prior to Medicare.
Right.
Because they paid about 1%, 1.25% into it, and it's a better. plan.
but teachers don't get social security like our police. And they also, do they get Medicare?
They
It's
do.
only based on private.
Expired after a certain date, but the date was
Right.
in the 80s, so I think the last folks are rolling off.
what happens when teachers turn 65, they go on Medicare? Does this plan include a sort of Medicare supplement plan, or
CRB plan does.
It
Yeah, the
does,
Teacher
yeah.
retirement board.
which is
plan
obviously
a-
optional? Yeah.
A good supplement plan for them to use.
And on the town side, we took our retirees and put them off onto a separate plan supplemental plan. They used to be in the pool with the active employees, which was kind of unfair to them. So that saved them money and it that actually saved the town money.
Yeah. On the cost side, this is good news on.
It is.
on improvements, yeah, all round. Well
The
done.
statute wouldn't permit us to do that because they must be all. involved with this.
Right. Yeah, one of the reasons I was asking, I know that my former employer, I have a retirement plan, but as a lot of people have opted to, not a retirement plan, I have a health plan, and a lot of people have opted to move away from that into an AR plan and so on. And so for those of us, including me, who are remaining, mostly the people who can't get insured are remaining, and some people who don't get their paperwork done early are remaining, and it gets more expensive. And so I was
Right,
just
and we're seeing that on the town side.
That is
too.
true.
you are.
That is
And
true.
so I just sort of, how are you dealing with that? Because I know how I'm going to deal with it. I'm going to move next year, away from that plan, as most of the partners have.
I think on the town side, depending on which union contract they're in and what they're paying, we are seeing that they're finding better rates with AARP and many of the other Medicare supplement plans out there. So they are leaving the town. We do offer, depending on which contract you're in, an amount to opt out because it saves the town monies to have them opt out. So
Right.
we also are seeing many of our retirees opting out.
I'll have to talk to you. Maybe I can negotiate a payment out. That's good. Yeah, no, it's insurance in general everywhere is ranging from extraordinary. I mean, I'm really surprised at your numbers because quite honestly, my experience, I would have never guessed that. And ranging from, what do we do for general liability and just in general? General liability, slip and falls.
That's covered under KERMA, and we do have a whole liability plan. And again, that came in at minus 2.5.
Well,
Again, with every slip and fall, we look at it, we offer classes depending on whatever the issues are, we
Yeah.
will deal with that
Yeah.
each year.
and what would happen if someone important in the town or the Board of Ed was sued for malpractice or sued for not doing the right thing in the private sector, you call it directors and officers insurance.
We do.
Are
have
you
that.
all covered in that? Yeah.
Everybody is covered through that,
Do the same mutual fund?
through KERMA, yes.
Karma.
And then they also, there's programs through Hanover that they will market out for us for those plans.
And we have that insurance and
We do.
who looks at the level of coverage? You?
We look at it with the CFO, the Board of Ed looks at theirs, and we make those
And
decisions.
is it appropriately up from where the levels of coverage is? I mean, it's,
Yeah, Tom Stadler helped us quite a bit on that and still does, depending on whether it's the tax collector that we're getting a certain bond for, or Board of Finance members, audit members, we are all covered under those.
There are
Does the-
levels of. Okay.
Sorry, because I mean, it is critical, the level of coverage, how much, more you cover you want, the more you pay in premium. Does it go to the Board of Selectmen or is it done internally with you and the staff? That decision as to
Actually, it's
just on liability cover.
it's pretty much with the risk managers. So
Right.
Right.
We look at it and then the contracts we will run through the
Right.
Board of Selectmen.
But
it goes through the
you
budget.
consult
goes through
with
the budget
Tom,
process.
Absolutely.
Tom Stadler's consulted on.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
There are levels of indemnification for our
Yep.
certified staff and, right up through for, thing, as long as we're operating within the bounds of Board of Education policy and statute.
But are there options on the level of coverage that the town can make? Because, I would, without knowing what they were, I'd encourage you to be higher rather than lower.
Yeah, we actually have moved up over the past 10 years. We were low. And I know as Tom's been kind of looking at it, he has helped us to,
We could talk about it offline.
yeah,
but
and we can show
yeah,
you what the
yeah,
coverages
Yeah,
are.
that'd be good. Great. Well, that's great. That's good to understand. But even in that area, premiums are down.
Premiums are down.
Like, maybe a salesperson. That's why I have a deal for them.
by the same token, some members of the town council suggested we go out for bid, and that's counterproductive in many ways, and we really don't want to do that. But just threatening it, they
Go out for bid on your insurance.
on permanent insurance to a private, and there's not many private companies that can compete against a mutual company.
I just.
And by the way, they also act as our risk managers. They got fabulous staff, and that's worth a lot of money.
I just had some personal experience, not for myself, but somebody in the family, and they, got much lower rates from a mutual company, even if you didn't get the dividend, but generally speaking, if you, I mean, look, you could have been paying exorbitantly for the last 20 years and therefore it's down. But generally speaking, I haven't spoken to anybody where their premiums are down on any subject in any place.
Right.
Which also makes me wonder a little bit, but that's a different day. So good, great. Okay, that's terrific. I don't want to take over your time. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Sean, we cut sort of anything else that good.
As we're heading into year end, I think we'll be in shape.
Yeah, you've been here, what, 2 years?
One,
One.
almost one.
Not even, yeah,
No,
that's the first close.
first of July, right? Was it?
July 1st, yes.
And how's Joanne doing? Okay.
Very well.
Yeah.
Good.
Very well. She's
Okay.
her
Enjoying
golf game's
retirement.
improving every other day.
That's good. That's good. I'll give you a lesson. That's one thing. Good. Good. Great. Okay. So, let's see where else I saw.
We need town financials. So,
Yeah, town's financial.
Josh,
Make sure everybody on the committee knows, Josh.
We met once. Yep.
Budget.
This is not your first audit committee.
Not my
meeting.
first rodeo.
Oh,
no.
exactly.
Your first rodeo. Yep.
Let's see, I'm just gonna share it on the screen.
Okay,
All right, so I believe you've been sent these financials
we
there
have, yeah.
as of April 30th. And I'll kind of go through them, just starting on the revenue side of things. So the overall revenue as of April 30th was at 100.36%, which is 555,000 over what was budgeted. That number obviously has since changed to, I'm sure, over 101%, if I had to guess, about 2 million or so over what was budgeted. Going down to the major factors, the tax collections is at 101.2% or 1.75 over what was budgeted. That pretty much would cap out of a theoretical limit of about 2.1 million that we could go over what was budgeted. And that's because of our budgeted collection rate of 98.5%.
Yeah.
Right now, we're sitting at about 99.81% as of June 1st. There's in Grand List 21, so this tax collect year, there's about 400,000 uncollected. Overall, across all years, we're at about 1.4 million uncollected. There's really three kind of large bills that are outstanding, 700,000 and two 100,000s. So, the tax collector department is working on kind of bringing those in as.
So what is, I guess I have two questions. There must be some statute that requires what you do when something's uncollected. And, in terms of.
I think there's options that they have in terms of foreclosures or putting liens or selling liens, I believe.
Yeah.
It's up to the discretion of the town, I guess, which avenues they
But
go
I
down.
assume that with respect to all of those, that we've employed one of those options, either foreclosure or lien or whatever the case may be, but no one.
You're getting ideas.
No.
So the main tax is the personal part, the business tax, the real estate tax and the car tax.
Yeah.
The real estate tax is the foreclosure. They do lien them every year. So if anyone,
Yeah.
if it turns over, we get money. But they also go down the foreclosure path, most of them, 1%.
But there's nobody there's nobody in town who has it. There is nobody in that group of people that underlie that $400,000.
You said there was what, 700,000? Is that right?
Correct, yeah.
Overall, yeah.
But that's.
On a house,
nobody
on a house,
getting
on a
special.
house that's worth millions, so. on a
Nobody
house-
getting special treatment in
No.
terms of not.
Just so car taxes are the most difficult one to collect. And that usually is a higher balance too, because of the fact of people move out, that bill doesn't exist until October 1st. That doesn't come out till next year.
Right.
So we have a hard one and they're with collection agencies. Business tax is also a hard one. If business come and go, they file that up at the state Concord. Real estate is a tangible asset that they put the liens on.
One of the things that we should think about is, I'm sure you have been thinking about it, is there's more and more people who change their residency. We just sort of you split residency and
Snowbirds.
snowbirds, but yeah, I mean, you read about it in the paper all the time, people moving to other states really to avoid taxes. I mean, maybe you get out of the weather as well, but to avoid the higher tax rate on the taxes. And, I'm sure what they're doing is legal, but then understanding whether cars are registered and so on, and what revenue, and I don't know how you get at, I don't know how you get at that, but I'm sure the tax collector could figure that out, But just making sure that we should probably ask you to look at that and see what, if anything, we are doing or the towns are
Well,
doing.
Stanford has done something on that. We've thought about it, but it's not very popular. People in Vermont and places where they're
Well, it's not popular unless you're paying full boat. In which case,
I also want to mention, the statutory rate of interest right now is 18%. The assembly, I think, has voted to reduce it to 12%. That's a big disincentive not to pay your taxes, because when you do pay, you're paying 18% a year. So it really mounts up fast.
the legislature has done what?
Reduced it to 12%.
12%.
So there's less, they're going the out, 18% gives people a big incentive to pay on time, because when they do pay, they pay a lot more.
Well, 12%, particularly when the interest rates are high, right? I mean, it's sort of the opposite. You would have, I mean, they're a little bit late in reducing.
But it's currently 18%. It's been 18% for years and years.
Yeah. So when the interest rates in general were 1% or 2%, 18 was a lot. Now there's 7 or 8, 12 is.
It's a small
Yeah.
premium, that's all.
Right.
Yeah.
So maybe you could, and just, something if we had an internal audit group they could do, maybe if we just ask the question as town to tax collector, what are they doing about, making sure that people who should be paying taxes on their cars are paying taxes? Yeah. And there might be other areas as well. Just
So I'd add that there's about 400,000 uncollected this year. We usually budget it in this year, we budget for prior year collections, we budget about 300,000. And the second line down is this year we've collected 470,000 of prior year collections. So I think there's probably naturally some leftovers that get collected in the next year. And right now, due to the efforts of the tax collector, we're at 150% of what we had budgeted for that line.
Yeah. There's probably some regression analysis you can run as to the number of taxpayers in the town or the number of houses in the town. And probably work with the Board of Education, you can figure out the number of, people or school children or something, put it into a little bit of analysis and project how many cars should be registered. And then and then at least well, if there's supposed to be 100 registered and we know we have 97, maybe it's not worth the effort. There's only 3, if it's off by a lot, maybe it would be worth the effort.
A lot of people also wait to have to register the car to pay the taxes. So,
Of course, yeah.
yeah, and that's where like a lot of the back taxes you can get as well, because they finally have to register the car and they can't, because the tax collector reports, all the tax collectors report to the state, to DMV delinquent cars.
Yeah.
So you can catch them that way as well, but a lot of people actually do like to wait and pay that fee, the interest when they go to register their car.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just the state system is actually a pretty good system,
Yeah, they upgraded a couple years ago.
yeah, good. Okay, what else we got?
Yep, and I'd actually add on to that, within the other revenues line, there is a line, if you dig into it a little bit, that's liens, fees, and investments on taxes on those interests. That is currently 150,000 over what was budgeted for the year. So down to building permits. Building permits are at 82.5%. At this point, it was 6% growth every month or so. I think we'll probably almost hit the 100% mark for the year. Down to conveyance fees. At this point, conveyance fees are at 65% of what was budgeted, 700,000 short. But ramping into April, May, June, those are some of the heavy hitter months for conveyance fees. We're getting 250,000 or so every month.
Conveyance fee is based on but it's percentage of the sales price, right?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah,
I
I understand that
about
So
510.
200 came in since April.
Yeah.
I understand that the higher price houses in town are not selling. I don't know if they're not selling or, maybe they're just slowly, but houses up to, at least the real estate agents tell me up to 2.5, 2.8 million sell pretty quickly, and houses above that don't. Maybe that's in the estimate.
There definitely has been slowing since last year.
So I guess on taxes, I think the audit committee has to say that, we really should accrue at 100% of what we expect, not 98.5%, which we've been doing for, I realize, a long time. But, when you build a budget, you should build in, and if you look at our experience, we've always got to get 100%, right? Or at least
We always think
high to
about
98.5.
99
Yeah,
something.
On
Yeah.
current tax.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, just, you should do that and, you should book it at 100%. And I realize you can talk to the first selectman about that. I realize a lot of other people weigh in on that, but from an audit standpoint, that's what you should do. From an accounting standpoint, right? I mean, you wouldn't like any of the departments coming in and, so that's what, we talked about it before and I realized it hasn't changed.
Yeah, Josh, just a quick question. There's a $5.5 million at the top there. 5.5 million. Do you know what the estimate of that is for this year?
I think the estimate right now is coming in 2 million better than the 5.5 million. So a probable drawdown of about 3.5.
So it's a drawdown of like 3.5.
That's what we're thinking right now. Yeah.
We have to work on the forecast. I'm currently working on the expense forecast for payroll and everything.
Mhm.
Board of Finance
Yeah.
number for the mill rate calculation for next week.
Yeah.
So try and true up as much as possible before we present it to them next Tuesday.
Good.
And a lot of that is probably this collection rate, right?
Well, the collection rate's pretty, yes, collection rate, and then we're waiting to see how, we got a couple of FEMAs in there that are prior years, so they go into miscellaneous revenue. We did not get the full excess cost that was budgeted. We're 300 short on that. I'm trying to think. Interest was a big, interest income was a big driver because we 25 million more invested this year than last year.
Right.
The rates of withdrawal, we kept the general fund cash low so that we could keep as much as possible. We're draining it this month, obviously, but it'll go back up again. So I think that's over, what, 500,000-600,000 at this point?
Yeah.
Over budget.
During this report, it was 400,000 over budget, but it must have gone up by then. So
yeah.
about 100,000.
Okay.
So. That pretty much covers most of the revenue side of things.
Mhm.
Have any questions about that?
No more.
No.
And kind of touched on the expenditure side. I think the expectation is that we come in on budget. There aren't that many highlights. I guess I would highlight like legal, which appears to be over budget at 155%. Traditionally, we budget 300 to 350,000 for legal fees. In FY23, we budgeted 250,000, an expectation that it would drop during that year, when in fact, obviously, it has been trending a lot closer to what we see year over year, or if not exceeding that slightly, due to land use and those.
I think legal fees, it's hard to rein that in, just in the world we live in, well, I guess I might say, I don't think I would budget that down in future years,
No,
I
not for this year, no.
Yeah.
But there's nothing happening that's causing the expenses. In other words, no issues.
No, any,
830
830
is doing
Gs,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, 830 Gs.
8:30, yeah, okay. Mhm.
And that's likely to continue next year.
And I don't think I really have anything more on the expense side.
great,
Great,
Okay.
thank you, appreciate it. So,
Yeah, thank you.
thank you.
Kevin, while you were gone, we agreed to,
Raise the collection rate to 100.
we do you a favor of good accounting in the government sector. So, moving on to, maybe just a quick update on bonding and a quick update on the library loans.
So bonding, as I said, we are gonna go out to bond February, March of next year. Right now, I'm closing down a lot of projects that have been done. The budget's been brought in and, any excess funds will come in front of the board of, hopefully the board of finance by next Tuesday, I'll have resolutions to close projects on top of either transferring the funds to other open authorized projects. It's, the departments have been very good. Board of Ed, DPW have been very helpful in getting me the information on what to close down. And that will address, you had a concern about the projects that were still open.
Right.
Just so you understand, some of them are still going to be open. In prior years, we did authorizations per a particular project. Now we do authorizations as a group. So we could do, I'm trying to think of an example, like DPW could have a collection of things together, and it could be landscaping, it could be all different projects, and they're all split out under that authorization. I can't close that authorization until every piece of that money has been spent and closed.
Yeah.
So I could have a 2018 still open because there's a bond, there's a paving piece in there. Everything else could be closed as a project, but that piece could be open. So there, you'll still see some older ones, but the budgets have all been brought to zero, so they can't spend on it anymore because they're closed. In terms of
How much in bonding do you expect roughly?
probably about 20 million.
20 million of new money?
Yes.
No, okay. No refinancing or whatever that we've done. I would doubt there is, but.
There, we've seen some opportunities, but the return on it is not
Right.
official. You're
Right. Not
talking
like it
1,000.
used to be. Yeah. Okay.
No. So we're going to do
All right.
about 20 million in that time period. And the you know, talking with our brokers, the muni bond, and I know from working in Bridgeport, I used to do 130 million in bonds. That's the best time to really go out for the market for muni bonds. The demand is there. So, but that's the time period for us. We also have a cliff coming up in our debt services. So it's actually working out organically. It's actually working out for us to
So when you do
optimize that.
when you do the 20 million, what will that do to our total debt?
Well, so we actually have 20 million means in March means it's not going to hit until our 25 budget. And in 25, I don't have the numbers in front of me. I think we drop about $2.5 million. So from it's minimum. And it's also, it's going to keep any increase if we have an increase in our debt service, annual debt service to.
I think he was asking about
Oh, sorry.
outstandings, our current. Yeah.
I don't have that money.
It's
Number.
it's
I'll get
kind of
it.
like at 100 million, it's got to go,
It's around, yeah, it's going to,
It sounds like it's going to go up quite a bit, right?
well, because of the police station, so.
right. But we have some stuff.
But then the
dropping
cliff,
off.
the cliff will come back down as far as.
Yeah. I'll get that number to you, send it out to the.
But we'll still maintain our position as the highest per capita debt in the state of Connecticut.
Highest mortgages per capita as well, highest everything.
Yeah, highest everything.
Maybe Darien takes over now.
Very right-wing conservative Republican approach.
But all our schools, everything
Yeah,
are
we have
up to date, like we have a really.
All of our buildings are up to date, unlike
Yeah,
some
our
neighboring
buildings have a
towns.
Big one, our
Yeah.
buildings. You know, a lot of districts or a lot of towns don't have that, like, and we see with Stanford's what's happening to them. So we're very fortunate that you put the investment early on to make sure our buildings are in a good position.
We don't have ceilings falling in our schools and
No.
stuff, so.
Oh, school's not going to fall down. Right. Total confidence in the superintendent.
My grandchildren are in a school where the ceiling fell in, so Greenwich.
So, okay, so that's good. That's good. You know, what I'd like to do is Joe and Catherine, I don't see you on the screen, but I guess they're gone. Okay. Maybe just if we could get, I'd like to just
Issues.
I just like to understand, you know, what we bond versus somebody's calling me and I just gotta get rid of what we bond, put in that basket of things we bond, you know, how small, we put some small stuff.
Anything
in there.
over 50,000. we
Anything
put
over
in right
50.
now.
I'd like
Yeah.
to understand how that compares to,
But we also bond based on the life expectancy. So
As
if we
well,
have
yeah.
short-term items, we can bind,
Yeah.
you know, when we issue bonds, some are 20-year bonds, some are 10-year bonds, some are 5-year
Yeah.
bonds.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
actually the shorter bonds are in great demand by the money market funds.
Yeah.
So
I'd like to just understand how other towns do that. Just, there must be some place, some set of policy, some comparison. I think we looked at that years ago, just.
The there's a subcommittee. I can't think of the subcommittee right. Debt management. Thank you. Debt management committee is actually looking at that right now to see the levels. What would it do to our debt levels if we raise it up? And then also to keep
Raise it
true-
up so it's not 50, but it's 100.
Right, what levels to put it at, and also, Josh, correct me if I'm wrong, there's a table that they keep it at, and they want it at 11 or 10% of our gross. I think around 11. Gross budget, so there is a debt service committee looking at that.
Good, good.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay.
In terms of the library, they did pull down their first tranche under the agreement that they asked for. It's only been 2 million, and that was April. And they're still have not asked for it. So this week is the week that,
So they've not actually taken the money.
not the full amount, 2 million they did take.
2 million.
Yeah. And this week, myself and Diane has been pulling through the schedule that their first tranche was at 2.1% of the muni rate they got for that day. So we're just bringing the interest up to date to now. We give them that. They're going to give us their pledge schedule and their cash flow this week. So we get, we have the appropriate documents for us, but so far
Who actually, when we get that, who actually looks at that and sort of audits it?
Well, I go through it to see from the timeline of what they're saying for their pledges, because we need to see.
And their audits
money.
are certifying to the pledges. So we know what the collateral is.
We know what they were certified. And then obviously Kevin and the team would get to look at the numbers.
Yeah, they're down to $1 million on their project to raise. So they've done very well. They
They
recently got a very large pledge, which is probably going to be paid immediately rather than as a,
What about the cost of the project? Because I heard, I could be wrong. I heard there was a big overrun.
no.
No?
No.
No
They
overrun?
were originally, correct me, they originally wanted 13% or 13 million extra, then it went down to 10.
7, 10.
To 10 or 7. So then we split it up saying, okay, 5 could be in cash because we can loan that out and get the interest, and 5 in bonding if needed. Well, they don't even think they're going to come to the 5 in cash that we would loan. So
And that's
they went
just,
to-
that's financing the receivables. They
Yeah,
have,
just-
they have pledges. Some are 2 or 3
Yeah.
years. So we're not just lending money. They are
Right.
raising their money. So
And they start paying back in
Nothing to be
November,
concerned
February.
about here.
No,
Good.
no.
Okay. Are there any questions by the audit committee? Are there any questions from either Kevin or Brian? Ann, you okay?
I'm good.
Questions? You're
Yes,
good?
yes.
Are we, any other matters we need to discuss? Ed, did I hear a motion for adjournment?
Moved.
And Chuck,
And
you
I'll-
seconded that,
I'll
huh?
second, I'll second.
Are you in favor? We're all in favor. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all.
a good summer.